I personally know people that are struggling with fertility issues, and you do too. Unfortunately, it's a common theme, a common health issue in America. Or maybe you are the one struggling. Your doctor might have a few ideas for you to try, but if that doesn't work, they'll tell you that there's nothing else they can do or go try IVF. But what if IVF isn't right for you? Or what if you don't want to or don't have tens of thousands of dollars to spend on that treatment? That's where Monica found herself. The doctors told her there was nothing else they could do to help her. IVF didn't work for her, changing her diet didn't work, but she knew that they were wrong and she proved it. She carried 2 pregnancies to full term and she now has 2 beautiful children. Her experience and all that she learned led her to study holistic and functional medicine and led her to founding Finding Fertility so that she can help other people do the same. She has a unique approach to overcoming infertility that includes lifestyle changes and functional medicine and the crucial role of gut health, all things I would expect and I love. But she also addresses nervous system health, trauma, and emotional healing. That is pretty unique. I love that she helps people body, mind, and spirit. Since we all know someone who could benefit from this, I hope that you'll share it with them because this podcast exists to help educate and empower people with knowledge for their health journey. If fertility isn't a topic that is relevant to you, you're thinking you don't need to listen to this. Well, I think that you'll find many of the principles that Monica shares are really applicable to any health issue and might give you a new take on your approach to figuring out what's wrong with you. So keep an open mind as you listen.
Welcome to the Daily Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Meredith. I've led my family on a transformative health journey for over a decade, and now I help other families do the same. This is a place where busy moms can learn about healthy living. I hope that what you learn here helps you feel empowered to take the next step in your family's health journey.
Monica, thanks so much for joining the Daily Wellness Podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me on. And 100 episodes, you're over 100 episodes now. I wanted to just say big congratulations to that. And I know this podcast is serving so many women. And I had a little look at your podcast and I thought it was the cutest thing that your husband has left a review.
Yeah.
And I just want to say to anyone who is listening and loves this podcast, the best way to support the podcast that is serving you is actually to leave a rating and a review. So go and do that after this episode, of course.
Of course, yes. Don't get too distracted. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate the encouragement. It's been a really fun adventure. I mean, I love talking to people about you. I mean, being so passionate about health and wellness and getting to interview people about these topics that I love and ask all my questions that, I pray before every episode that I can ask questions and help the conversation be guided in a way that serves people well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that this conversation is going to do that because you're so passionate about this topic and so knowledgeable. So can you just kind of tell us who you are and your own journey with infertility and what led you to doing what you're doing today?
Yes. So like everyone listening, I feel, in yourself, I didn't set out to challenge the medical system. I was just a 27-year-old young girl who wanted to get pregnant. And we tried the good old-fashioned way and all the tips and tricks that Google had to offer back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And it wasn't working. In 3 years, I had never seen a positive pregnancy test. All my labs and stuff were normal and fine. So they sent us to do IVF. That seems to be the answer to basically every fertility issue struggle.
Right.
And it was a shambles. I mean, at 30 years old, we didn't make one healthy embryo. My husband's sperm was fine. So they just diagnosed me at that point with low egg quality.
Wow.
And in our appointment, it's called WTF, kindly, like, what is going on?
Right.
They just said, there's nothing you can do. Just try IVF again. And that just didn't resonate with either my husband and I. And it was actually my first experience of maybe having God, angels, the universe, whatever you want to say. I just vividly remember in my mind them saying, it's BS. Don't listen. There's something you can do. just don't jump into another round of IVF. And so we didn't, because they didn't have any good medical advice either. They weren't going to change any of the drugs, and we had to pay for it. So we were just like, that seems like insanity, like pay,
Right.
thousands of dollars. And in a random conversation with a friend who was fixing his own health, he said, change your diet. And we just looked at him and laughed, and we were fit and healthy. It wasn't like we had any kind of diagnosis to warrant a diet change. And in our view, we didn't have a bad diet either. We weren't eating McDonald's or, lots of candies or any of that. It was just the kind of normal standard Western diet. And I just thought to myself, like, well, if I was willing to inject myself with all these chemical drugs, go through a pretty invasive procedure, why not try and see what happens? And so I did. And we took a year off of trying to conceive an IVF, and I saw massive improvements, just like I know everyone here, you start something and you continue and you're like, oh my gosh, my digestion, my moods, my sleep, my skin, my hair, my periods got healthier, like things I just didn't even know I had control over through food. But I still wasn't getting pregnant. And so I got intuitively led to a book called Is Your Body Baby Friendly? Now, this is not a holistic book. This is a very scientific um, medical book. But he was the first one to really talk about immune, linking fertility issues to different areas of the body. And I just knew it. Even though it wasn't like describing me, I wasn't having reoccurring miscarriages. So I sought out a clinic, and the consulting doctor there talked us out of it. And I didn't follow my intuition.
Wow.
And I did another round of IVF, and we got better embryos, which, remember, the doctor said I couldn't do. So we
Right.
saw success in that way, but I didn't even make it to day 28. And that was devastating.
Yeah.
As you know, as listeners know, you're doing everything quote unquote right, and medical assistance can't even give you that success.
Right.
I truly thought like I couldn't do it. So I printed out a surrogacy form and went back to Dr. Google and um, finally collected myself and was like, just demand that testing that you went there for. And we got the testing. And even after a whole year of being perfect, I still had high natural killer cells, which, for those who don't know, everyone has these natural killer cells. They are essential to life. They protect you from viruses, even cancer. They are what, when you get sick, they help you recover. When you have an autoimmune issue, when you have a severe leaky gut, your natural killer cells go on overdrive because particles from your gut go into your bloodstream and attack. My autoimmune issue was so silent, I wasn't presenting with normal diagnoses, but so loud that I wasn't even getting pregnant with IVF.
Wow.
And you'll love this part of the story. So I went back to Dr. Google and I was like, okay, I have an autoimmune issue. So what can I do for my gut? And I found the Paleo Mom. And at the time, it was just a blog, like a standard, kind of early 2000s, just ghetto blog. And it
Yep.
had all the information that I needed to link what my root cause was. And so with that knowledge and with the medical knowledge, with the immune suppressing drugs, I finally got pregnant on our first embryo transfer almost 6 years into our journey.
Wow.
And that was just like, it blew my mind. Like, we did it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, on our 7-week scan, there was no heartbeat. And as devastating as that was in my journey, it gave me tangible hope because it gave me proof that I could get pregnant.
Hey, Daily Wellness listeners. Every day that I'm on social media or just out in the real world, I see someone struggling with allergies, migraines, fatigue, bloating, or some other kind of gastrointestinal problem. And I bet you know people struggling with these things too. The thing is that most people have no idea that the reason they're experiencing these symptoms could be due to a histamine intolerance. And that's a gut issue. If they do suspect a histamine intolerance, their doctor may put them on a low histamine diet, but that doesn't stop the body from overproducing histamine. My friend Heather caught on to the struggle that so many people were experiencing and created a course to help people heal the histamine issues for good. She is a nutritionist and certified GAPS practitioner and all around awesome person. And her course includes 30 videos and handouts, 3 traditional food courses, and the option to work with her one on one. If you think this is something that you need to check out, you can learn more through the link in the show notes. And if you feel like it's a good fit, Heather is generously offering you 20% off with the code histamine20. That's HISTAMINE20. Stop managing your symptoms and start healing. Right. So you got like this extreme emotional roller coaster going on.
Yes.
You have like all the financial impact of the rounds of IVF. It's very expensive. All the drugs that were those are chemicals in your body that you have to learn to deal with. You have the physical impact of the stress and the pharmaceuticals and the changes that you're trying to make. I mean, there's like a lot going on.
It's a lot.
And even with all of that, you're like, I can see some hope here.
Yeah. It was.
So that's incredible.
Yeah.
To hear you say that you're like, at the end of all this and you're like, but something positive is happening, like I am doing the thing that doctors said I couldn't happen.
Exactly. And I think it's that innate drive that when you get something put into your heart, and we all have something that's in our heart, and we just know for some reason we are meant to do that, you will continue going and literally failing your way through. Because I was saying to a client the other day, I have more failures than I have success in fertility. And if you hyper focus on those failures, you will never get to your success because you'll give up. Because, like, what's the point? I'm still failing.
Right.
So you have to just remember and continuously ask yourself, whatever your journey is it worth the failure to keep going? And you'll get your answer. And most of the time it's yes. Just keep going. It's going to be worth it. And it was. My second frozen embryo transfer is my IVF baby. And he is just absolutely gorgeous, as every mother thinks their child is. And during that pregnancy and his first year of life, I just got pushed into this deep surrender and love and joy and healing my gut. I was a perfectionist with my diet because at that time I didn't have the understanding that if I had a few, mishaps with the things I knew were inflammatory to me, I wasn't going to spontaneously miscarry. So during that time, my cellular health, because fertility is a cellular health issue, unless you're dealing with a structural issue or genetics that cannot be influenced by, functional medicine at this time, you're dealing with a cellular health issue. So my cellular health just went through the roof. So I was confident when we were going back for the 2 remaining embryos that we were going to have twins. Beyonce was pregnant with twins. I got 2 egg yolks. Like, it was going to happen. And it did. I got pregnant, but unfortunately I had an early miscarriage. And that miscarriage was a lot harder, because that was the end. I was done with medical treatment. We were about to move countries from the United Kingdom back to America. And we just knew that was going to be the end of our journey. My husband was away. I was alone. And yeah, I was just like, okay, just be with this baby you have in front of you, because my son was still really young. And just get into that gratitude of you get to live life with this beautiful human being. And so that's how we started living life. But 2 months later, I was pregnant naturally at
Wow.
36. And that was just even bigger of a mind blow because I have to be honest, I never sought out in this journey with the radical belief I could get pregnant naturally.
Mm.
There wasn't, I mean, Instagram wasn't really invented like at this time. There wasn't amazing podcasts like this. There weren't even really good books specifically about fertility. So I didn't have, that image or that hope of like, hey, well, she did it and she did it. Then there is a possibility. And so when I was pregnant naturally, about 4 months into it, I think looking back with hindsight, this should have been my warning sign because my journey should have been done. I did it. I achieved the ultimate dream. I was the magical unicorn, this pregnant, naturally. And I got angry. I got real angry that the lifestyle and the diet was doable. It was hard, but it was doable. I didn't have to go through all the medical trauma, like you mentioned, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially. And I didn't understand how a layman like me, right? I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. How could I piece this all together? And the medical system, with all their technology, all their knowledge, all the smart people in that field, almost still to this day, we're talking 15, 20 years later, not show up for women in this way.
Yeah.
And, but I repressed my anger. I just got on with life. I created Finding Fertility. I started sharing my message. I became that kind of little weirdo who was like, hey, gut health is a thing for fertility, you know? Um, and it wasn't until the thick of entrepreneurship and motherhood. My second son was about 2 years old, and we were sat on the kitchen floor, and he was raging over not getting like a blue popsicle.
Right.
And what I felt in my body, I knew was not normal. I knew it wasn't the typical motherhood stress. It was just the beginning of COVID. And I thought, this isn't right. I shouldn't feel this way about this beautiful boy I worked so hard to get. And so went down another rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And realized that I had a bunch of stuck, repressed emotion, energy, frequency, um, through all of life, right?
Yeah.
Not just the medical trauma, the fertility struggle, 8 years, but in childhood and that emotion I can link now was actually a lot of repressed emotion that was put into me through my parents and them not being able to handle my crying and my explosiveness, just because as we know now, generationally, my parents were boomers. They were raised by the silent generation. And that opened a whole can of worms that I was not ready for.
Yeah.
But
Their level of healing.
exactly. But I applied the same curiosity and willingness to that I had in my fertility journey to now move into helping women. Because as you know, and as you see, the knowledge is out there with the functional medicine. I'm going to be a little bit harsh here. No one has any excuses anymore. I'm 44 this year. I had an excuse at 27. Our parents had excuses. There's not very many excuses here because you can go out and use the internet. You have the medical system. You can go learn about the endocrine system, gut health, energy. You can learn about those things. And I get women coming to me saying, hey, I'm doing everything. And they are. I'm sitting there going like, I can't give you any more information on, on the functional medicine side. You are knowledgeable. What's going on? Well, I need more knowledge. I need to do this. I can't still sit still. I'm type A. I'm overachiever, and really helping them unlock why, the whys behind that. Because I found in my journey that I could not out supplement. I couldn't out diet what I was feeling.
Amen to that. Yeah.
Right. So that is my journey in a nutshell.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably. I know that's a lot of hard things to open up about, and I appreciate you sharing
Yeah.
your life through it. Great. Well, I mean, one thing that you said about, the why isn't the medical community serving women in this way? And this is, I don't know if this is really a topic that we want to get into or not, but I mean, you can make money doing what you're doing, but not as much as an IVF clinic can make. So I honestly think that's one reason why the medical community, maybe it's not even that they have like the heart, like a lot of these practitioners have good hearts and like really want to help people, but the system itself is so based on, providing procedures and pharmaceuticals to treat. And then that's how they get funded. So it's a whole messed up system where we really put profit, we put profit above people and what's really best in quote unquote medical practices, right? So
Absolutely. You could go down many,
yeah.
yes, you could go down many rabbit holes and compare conspiracy theories with that one. And that's why I think learning about how to really truly follow your intuition and use your discernment.
Yeah.
Because just like in my story, when you get that white coat syndrome, well, they know they're the experts, but your body is literally screaming at you like that is not correct, is having the enough empowerment inside of you to go, no, I'm not doing that. And here's the fact, you're paying them.
Yeah.
They serve you.
Right.
So if you don't like it, go somewhere else. And don't be scared of the imaginary timeline they've thrown your way. And that's what probably gets me the most about the fertility community when you see very smart, educated OBGYNs on the internet telling women that age is the number one factor in fertility. I even saw on a really popular podcast called The Diary of a CEO. It's a British podcast. He had this one OBGYN. She's very popular on the internet. And the title of her podcast was Your Fertility Starts to Half Every Year After 32. And I was like, weren't you the one screaming at us that we needed scientific facts about everything we say? That is not scientifically true.
Yeah.
So it's just so important to gain that empowerment for yourself because, like you said, I don't believe most of them have like, this evil sinisterness behind them. I can only say they're indoctrinated.
Yeah.
And they truly believe what they're saying.
Right.
And that's the sad part.
Right. I think like people on this podcast, if they've listened long enough, have heard part of my story and know that following my God-given intuition is a huge part of my story and why my family ended up going down, our own health journey and our many rabbit holes and our health journey. And I love that you said the word curiosity because it's amazing how much that comes up in conversations about health, learning, curiosity, being curious. Like that's one of my absolute favorite qualities. For that reason, because you have to be willing to ask a question, right? And you have to be able to receive questions too, like, what, like to be able to really process things inside yourself. Oh, was I wrong about that? Like, was I stuck in a belief that wasn't serving me well? And this question that person asked of me is really bringing that to light. Anyway, I just think that's really amazing that it rings true for you as well. And like that's such a common theme is, us, I think especially as moms, like we have intuition for ourselves and for our babies. and that's there for a reason. And so I just hope that everyone listening just feels more empowered and feels more encouraged to really follow that and see where it leads you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
I know. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna on your point of asking yourself, was I wrong?
Yeah.
That's another huge thing in this journey is radical honesty,
Mm.
because we're really good at gaslighting ourselves. Oh, but I do the yoga. Oh, but I have the perfect diet. Oh, but I have this. And when you get radically honest of when you're standing doing the dishes, what mode are you in? What are you thinking? What's your thought pattern? Are you in victim mode? Because I found myself in victim mode that I'm always the one who does the dishes. And I was like, that's not true. Like your husband helps with the dishes. And just really tapping into being radically honest with yourself, because that's where the growth is. If you truly think your life is perfect, then kudos, like give me an email and let me know how you did it.
Yeah.
And just showing up for yourself to that, even that 1% can radically change your life over 6 months, a year, 2 years.
Yeah. So how does that relate to your fertility journey? Like really being able to examine yourself. Like what are some of the things that women really need to tune into in their own bodies I mean, that if they're struggling with fertility, right? Like maybe
Mhm.
they've taken some steps, maybe not, but it's kind of hard to know like even where to start or, how to really listen to your body if you're not used to that. So what
Mhm.
kind of advice would you have to start learning how to do
So
that?
I would even just start with your mindset. How are you talking about yourself? Because most of the time we start off, I'm broken, I'm infertile, I have this diagnosis, I'm old. So what are you saying to yourself? And that's the radical honesty of like, hey, no, I actually really look at myself that I am broken. I feel broken. And that's justified, right? Because we do feel that way. When we're in the healing journey, when we're elevating, there is a level of truth that we are quote unquote broken. So it's really then start moving into what can I do to change that for myself?
Mm.
Because like I said earlier, there is a very small population of people who are truly infertile. And I don't even like using the word infertility. I use it more for SEO because that's what people are Googling.
Right.
There's a very small people who are actually dealing with infertility. And those are people with structural issues, maybe women who don't have eggs, men who, really have a sperm issue that is, irreversible, um, and genetic issues. The rest of us are dealing with fertility issues that are at a cellular level. So start reframing like, okay, what can I do? Right? Yeah, I'm 35. Yeah, who cares? Because I'm telling you, your ovaries don't know how many candles are on your birthday cake. They're not
Yeah,
counting. um, and so really just examine what you're doing. And then when you feel like you're doing everything right, ask yourself, are you seeing the results from the right? Right? Because in my journey, when I changed my diet, I basically went paleo. But that wasn't enough for me at the time to heal my gut. I had to go autoimmune paleo because I was intolerant to the nightshades. And so even though I felt like I mean, you could not fault my health when I was going through this. Um, I still wasn't doing the right thing for me.
Yeah.
And so that radical honesty of like, ah, man, did I want to go autoimmune paleo? Like, absolutely not. Like, no, like I already felt like I had a restrictive diet, but I had to be radically honest. That diet wasn't working. And in hindsight, I was judging where I started to where I was, and that improvement was so amazing. And I didn't have the knowledge to see it at the time, but I still had some symptoms. But
Mhm.
because those symptoms were so much smaller and more manageable than where I started, I just didn't think they were that big of a deal. And so that radical honesty that I saw with hindsight of like, wow, cutting out nightshades within 3 weeks, my last digestive issue went away like
Wow.
magic. So just really getting clear about your situation.
Yeah.
And it will change your life. And the more you can do that for yourself, and even in situations where you think it's the other person, like they did, ask yourself, you can't change that other person, right? You can't change the situation if it's in the past or how they move. How can you change inside of you? What can you do that you're not going to get triggered from their BS? That's all you can control. So if you're still in this victim mode, in this martyr mode, then you will continue to see those patterns outside of you, and it will it just becomes your reality, right? And even though you're sitting there going, I'm not doing anything wrong. Okay, but what can you change? Can you put boundaries up?
Yeah.
Right? Are you setting those boundaries for those people or those situations? So it it it's a I don't want to say higher level. I don't like talking about this journey, everyone's moving forward, right? Um that kind of responsibility and radical honesty is a few steps forward in the journey
Yeah.
because
For me, what I hear when you're talking about this is more like a reevaluating.
Mhm.
Just like be willing to reevaluate. Okay, this is what I need to do. And I did it and I feel great, but maybe I'm not still where my goal was.
Yes.
Like at that point, you need to reevaluate, like,
Yeah.
and be like, okay, that had some benefits, but I'm not where I wanted to be. So,
Yeah, and it's really important because if you would have told me to go AIP when I first started changing my diet, it would have been too much for me. It would have been so overwhelming
yeah,
to do that. So starting where you're at and having that ability to reevaluate and build from there is how you're going to see the success you want.
yeah. So, I mean, your journey was really, also talking about functional medicine, it was really like a journey of finding the root cause.
Yes.
Right, and addressing all of that. So when you're working with other women, what are you finding is the root cause of these fertility issues?
The top two things is gut health, hands down. I mean, your gut is the master controller for everything. If we bring common sense back to science, that if you don't have a gut that is able to really bring that nutrients to the rest of your body, then how are the other modalities going to function? Right? Your fertility literally runs from the top of your head. It's like a water fountain, right? Starts up here, goes down, and then it comes back up. So when you're dealing with gut health issues, it's really hard to boost any cellular health. And the other thing is stress, but a deeper level of stress of that chronic, fight or flight mode. And if you're dealing with thyroid issues, gut health issues, I mean, gut is not just about diet and probiotics and prebiotics. It's about mental and emotional. That's why it's called the gut feeling. Um, so it's really dialing in on how you're patterning. How are you moving? I had someone in my breakthrough session, a mom of two, a psychiatrist, knew the functional medicine side of everything. And I said, what's your level of anxiety moving through your morning? She's like, pretty high. Like, yeah, because you got to get two kids out the door to daycare, get your day, and then you're at a deadline. So you have to move through your day. You've got to do X, Y, and Z. She was so stressed out that she had to take a shower on her to-do list. Right.
Wow.
So I don't think people realize how chronically stressed and in overdue hyper mode that they are. So the reflexology, the acupuncture, the yoga, the meditation that you do 2% of your day, maybe of your week. So what does the 98% of your life look like? How are you running? And that is the default energy, right? you can't out supplement, you can't out diet, you can't do as much yoga. If you're on that yoga mat and you feel relaxed and then you go and you're honking your horn and flipping off the traffic, that's what you're running. You haven't really changed anything. Yes, you got to rest, you got, a little bit of spark back into you. But if you back to the radical honesty, how am I moving through my day? And I don't know, it seems to be this another level of fertility issue that just can't be kind of quote unquote solved by the diet and the lifestyle and the IVF.
Hmm.
I'm not sure why as of yet. My best guess is that my journey was very physical. I fixed my gut health, fixed my fertility. Yes, of course I did mindset and I slowed down. Those things were essential, but I didn't do the frequency, the energy. I didn't do the past trauma, any of that. I really feel that there's a level of souls that are just like, hey, I need you to get your stuff together, because what you don't know is you are going to pattern the same way when I come. And if you don't stop that patterning, you're going to have to figure it out while you have kids. 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4. And I just think there's this level of souls that are just like, hey, we need to come down here to help heal. And we don't want autoimmune issues. We don't want mommy and daddy's BS, food sensitivities, ADHD, autism. I mean, you name it. There's a huge epidemic of our children's health, which no one is screaming loud enough about. And everyone just wants to put their head in the sand about it. It was really interesting being part of some discourse around RFK and bringing out the food dyes and all that, or taking them out and stuff. And I said, hey, it's great. Don't get me wrong. It needs to happen. It's crazy that these food companies can get away with it. But where's the radical responsibility again? Where's the responsibility of the mother, the father, the consumer? Once again, you have no excuse. You can go look up what Red 40 is.
Right.
You can see your kid freak out. He's having learning difficulties, but yet you're not willing to do that. Why aren't you willing to do that? Well, they're running the same patterns. They're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
They can barely just survive through the day. So changing their diet and their kids' diet,
It's too overwhelming. Yeah.
it's a big task.
Yeah.
And this woman said, well, a lot of people don't have the resources. They don't have the money. It was kind of like that kind of, well, the poor get hit more and all that, which I think is true. But the other reality, I live in a neighborhood that you can't buy a house under $1 million. And I will tell you, more than half of my kids' classmates eat crap daily.
Yeah.
It's not a money thing.
Yeah.
It's not a knowledge thing, because they know. It's an inner thing that they're just so tired and worn down that they don't have that much energy. So when you're in a fertility struggle, whether it's secondary or you're waiting for your first child, you have more space.
Yeah.
Each child takes up a little bit more of your time. You have more space to do you. And that's the only way you can support your family, because I get a lot of, friends and moms say, well, my kid has this now and this now. And I'm said, well, they're watching you. The whole saying, do as I say, not as I do, it doesn't work, because your kids feed off your energy, not what you say. They're watching you. They're watching your patterns. They can feel your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're asking them to do something that they don't know how to do because they don't see you do it. So if you can take the time and do that for yourself, you actually energetically, without even having to try, help your child elevate alongside with you.
Yeah. I know that I feel like I have learned a lot in my health journey, and my things that my parents didn't know or couldn't have known, the information just wasn't out there, that I've been able to learn and implement in my family. But I know there's still so much more out there. And so my hope is in the same way is that my kids will take where they're at, right? And then move beyond that with their families, right? So that it just
Exactly.
keeps we just keep getting better.
Yeah,
Um,
and your kids aren't going to have to wait until they're 20, 30 to figure out the diet, to figure out the toxins, to figure out even some of the mental and emotional stuff, right?
yeah,
They I don't think people realize it's so untangible right now. The people doing the work now, their children are going to have a massive advantage
right.
in the cognitive and emotional regulation because even if you just do diet, they will have that upper hand because their brain and their body are not struggling with the inflammation that other kids have to deal with.
Right. So, I mean, you started out by saying that a lot of the fertility issues were cellular health issues.
Mhm.
And now these two specific things that we've talked about, both gut health and nervous system work, really are things that can both impact our cellular health. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in my own journey, I was perfect with my diet, right? I mean, I still have a very clean diet and I don't really know like what to say, but I have scar tissue from an ulcer that was forming in my late teens, early 20s, and it will flare up when the emotions get too big.
Mm.
When I'm too stressed out, it is my warning sign to slow down. And I was like, what is going on? I'm eating perfectly. I'm doing all the right supplements. Like, this is crazy. I should not have this. So, once again, got curious. And it's like, hey, no, the emotions are there. So, it is that next level um, for people who are doing it all.
Hmm.
It's one of the most challenging things to do because it's not tangible.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to feel everything you have pushed aside.
Yeah. So, in your work with women, do you address the physical and the emotional side?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, a lot of my clients now are coming to me. They have the functional medicine side, right? They know what they need to do. I help tweak some things, kind of like open them up to either bring more food in, because that's a really big thing I see is this like, oh, I can only eat this. Like, no, are you intolerant to dairy or gluten or soy? No. You can eat healthy sources of that. Let's
Yeah.
not do that to ourselves. But yeah, the energetic work is yeah, is kind of the bread and butter now. It's really helping people see the holes in their journey. It's like I said, it's wild how good we are at gaslighting ourselves.
Mm.
Um thinking small things. I mean, even just yesterday I was in a one-to-one and we got led down a pretty interesting path and talking about an emotion of disgust around when she was 16 or 17. And I said, does this resonate with you? And she was just like, yeah, I had this friend who pretty much backstabbed me. And like, as a 16-year-old girl, you know that's your world. And I said, okay, tap into your emotions, get in a whole brain state. And how do you feel? And she said her heart like just was like boom, 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 boom. And so if you get still enough with your body and ask, how am I feeling about this situation that happened 20 years ago? And if you get heart palpitations, if your gut starts churning, if you feel like you want to throw up, that's stuck emotions. And as much as you can cognitively say, nah, I got over that, it was the past, you know, even if you can like have sympathy for someone who did you wrong because you understand now, like
Yeah.
you know, all the stuff that we have the knowledge to, that doesn't matter. If it is in your body and it is just causing that chaos, it's time to let it go and do the work that you need to do. And there's so many amazing modalities out there to release energy. And really, what I say, it's all about finding what you resonate with.
Mm.
So, emotional freedom tapping, I do. I'm trained in a modality called Psych K, but I don't really do Psych K anymore. I've pulled it more into frequency work. There are, energy healers. There's somatic movement that you can do. So it's really tapping into what you're willing to like get into, because sometimes the belief system, I know when I started doing this, I was like, this is so weird. It's just like,
Yeah, I kind of learn, like, I mean, I'm a believer, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and a lot of people who are Christians look at this kind of stuff as, I don't know, almost sinful, right?
yeah.
Because Jesus is our healer, which I totally believe. But I believe that also Jesus created our bodies to work a certain way. He created our body with energy and to respond to frequencies. And, he created our nervous systems to work a certain way and our bodies to move a certain way. So I've had to work through some of that too. Like, is this okay? Is this weird? Is this, like some of that too? But I just feel like we need to be really open-minded with how God created our bodies, and
Yeah. I mean,
it's amazing healing modalities.
exactly.
I know we need to wrap up, but what piece of advice would you give the woman who is struggling with fertility issues right now? Like, what would you want to leave her with?
Yeah, I got two things. One, grace. Give yourself grace. You've had decades of not knowing how you were moving through your life, and it's going, luckily, not to take you decades to get out of it, but it's going to take you some time. So don't feel that time pressure. You gain time back when you boost your cellular health. I am way more fertile and healthy at 44 than I was at 27. So give yourself that grace and that time to really come back to yourself. And, oh, I forgot the second thing. I had another good nugget of knowledge. Just trust yourself.
Yeah.
You're here for a reason. You're listening to these things. You're exploring these things. I did so many things that weren't good for my body with hindsight, but I never killed myself. So that was good. Explore and trust and find what resonates with you and just get into that cruise control and just know that in the right timing, not your timing, and whether you believe in God or, source, universe, that timing is going to be so precious. I never once doubted that holding my baby at 37 was the wrong timing. I never looked back and I wish I had this baby at 27. Absolutely not. Do you know how much crap I would have given that baby physically and mentally? No, 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 no. I had time to sort myself out, and that was the best gift.
Good. We're going to put all of your contact info in the show notes. So if people want to reach out to you and keep learning from you, they can find more info there. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your wisdom with us.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to today's episode on the Daily Wellness Podcast. We hope that you found it helpful for your own wellness journey. And if so, we'd love for you to leave a review. Then come back and listen for review shoutouts on upcoming episodes. For more information, check out the show notes and connect with us on our website, dailywellnesscommunity.com.